In today's video, we are going to create these two options here. The first one enables us to use the drop down, and inside of it is a whole bunch of different fonts that I've imported into the store. So you can use any one of these at any time, and it only applies to this heading up here. And this is actually inside of a different section, but this can be added to change any heading. So we are going to look at how to do this, so you can also create your own little list with different fonts, imported fonts inside of it. We are going to add these options to this heading in the all products section, which is this section right here, and we are going to also add our options to change this heading style. We're going to add it right in between the heading title and just above this checkbox. So what we need to do is we need to find out which file this section is inside of. And what I mean by that is which file in our code editor. Now all of the files, all of the files for our theme customization tools, all of these sections, they are inside of the section folder. So all of the tools that you see here on the side are in here. But what Shopify does is they don't always name these files. They don't always give it the same name as the sections outside here. So we need to find out what the name of the section is. So the easiest way that I found to do this is just to right click on your heading like this, and you go to your inspector. Inspector will show up, and we'll see here this name will show up twice. It's over here, featured collection, and up here is also featured collection. So we'll just copy the word featured collection, and there's the 2 underscores and heading. We'll just copy that because this is what we are going to use to add our style to, our new font to, and also this H2 over here. But we'll get back to this, or we'll just add that later on when we apply or when we create our styles for this section or this heading. So let's go over to our editor and just look for our featured collection. It's right here, and inside of here we'll just search for the title we just copied. So this is what we are going to use later on. We're going to use this title here to apply our styles to. So the first thing that you will need is obviously you'll need your custom font downloaded. I've downloaded all of the custom font. I have it at a list from this website, and once you download it, you have to convert it to a WOFF format. Shopify only supports this format, actually the WOFF and the WOFF2. So you have to convert them into this format. This will be the original format you will be downloading those files into. So extract them and just drop them in here, or any website like this that allows you to convert fonts to a different format, but you have to convert them into this format. Once you have finished converting your fonts and you have downloaded them onto your system, what you have to do is you have to import them into your Shopify store files, and you're gonna have to add them inside of the assets folder. So just go to your code editor, into your assets folder, and just click on add new asset, and then just choose the file wherever you saved it. Do not upload the zip file, upload the file that's inside the actual font file. Here's my list, all of my fonts that I've added to my assets folder. So just do the same, and once this is here, we're all set, and we'll come back to this later. So the easiest way to find where these options are inside of a code editor is just to search for these label names. So let's copy that, and inside of our editor, to search inside of our editor, you just press Control F, and we'll bring up the search box, and let's paste it. And now we found our label. So we want to place our section right above this one, and this one starts here at type, just before this opening curly brace and after this closing one with the comma. So we are going to place our code for our options right in between here, because this one up here is the heading. It's just text over there and title. So that's the heading. So now what we want to do is we want to add a checkbox, and we could just use this one, which is exactly what we need. But you have to get rid of all of these translated texts, because they won't match your translation what you put in here. So to do that, just copy the English translation line, and let's just highlight everything in between the curly braces and replace everything just with that one line. So that's the only thing we need. So we are just going to use this, and we will do the same thing with our drop down box. Let me just undo that. Our drop down box is, there is one on this page, so we can just copy everything that's made from this, all the code that's used to make this drop down, and it's called grid style. Just to quickly find where it is. Okay, so this is it. It's called select. This is the type of box. So it starts here. If you click on the opening curly brace and you scroll down, you'll see the last one. So you want to copy this whole section. So let's just copy everything and let's paste it up here. Now we'll just remove all of the other translations. If you want to use a different translation, that's fine. You can also do it that way. So let's just get rid of all of this, and now we have a much more cleaner looking code here. Okay, so this is basically what we are going to use, a checkbox in the drop down. Okay, so this is my completed list. I've only added 2. Well, my previous list has a whole bunch of fonts, but I'm just going to use these 2. So the only thing that we are going to use from these 2, the checkbox and the drop down, is the IDs. We're going to use the IDs, so be sure to write those down. These IDs are unique, so we're going to call onto them later. And this ID over here, and the values for the font. But for now, let's just make a note of our IDs. Okay, so just another another thing to be aware of, that if there's anything like any commas or any repeated words anywhere inside of the schema, it's not going to save, or it will, like in this case, it will tell you where exactly the problem is. And this one says like the default must be one of the values, and what that means is when the drop down box has to be, it always needs a default. Like this is the default right here, and a default has to be one of these values or one of the items inside of the list. So like this is the default, this is one of the fonts that I had earlier. So let me just change that. So this is one of the helpful things about the code editor. It will sometimes, or most of the time, it will tell you exactly what's wrong, and it won't allow you to save the file. But now that that's fixed, let's save it, and let's go over to our store and reload our page. So now these 2 options will show up here on the side, but they won't be usable. They won't do anything. They'll just be here. We can select them and whatever, but they won't actually do anything. So the next thing we're going to do is, first we are going to assign these 2 values to the actual font, and that will actually change this. But we'll see that once we assign it to one of these 2 fonts, or we assign this checkbox to both of these fonts, like I said earlier, one of these has to be the default. So that means that this will just automatically start out with this font, with this one's font, or whichever one I selected. So there's no reverting back to your standard store fonts. That's why we will have to use this checkbox to give us the option to disable this completely. But for now, let's just assign this drop down to this heading, and then we will assign the checkbox to allow us to use this. So the next thing we'll do is we'll go over back to our code editor, and inside of our, not our sections folder, but inside of our assets folder, there's a file called themes.css.liquid. We'll just open up this file, and at the bottom of this file you're going to add some code. I've already added mine, even though it's not going to work at the moment, but I've already added mine. We are first going to assign our imported fonts to the add font face line. So just copy this exact line of code here as the same as mine. Just make sure that you put the font that you imported into the store, that you put yours between these two curly braces, between the two double quotes inside of the curly braces, and also the format that's at the end of the file that you also added. And the name here doesn't have to be exactly the same, but just make it the same, and that's all you have to do. But it still won't work. We still need to do a different we still need to assign our font to the class of our section. So you can pause this and just create this inside of your themes folder. And if you want to add more fonts, you just duplicate, just make a duplicate and just change the names, and that's it. Just change the names and add your new font in there. So once you're done with this, we'll just head back to our feature collection file again, and we'll go up. Now we'll select this line here. This line is where our heading is attached to. We'll just copy that and paste it up here. Now you might not have a space here. You can just create some space just after or before or right at the top. Just make some space and paste that line of code there. And the other thing we also need is this h2. We're going to need this, so you can copy that and just after create a space, and after the heading we'll just say h2, and right in front of featured we'll just add a dot, and now we'll create an open and a closing curly brace. So right in here we are going to say font family, and we are going to add a line of code that says section.settings, and this line here is your ID, the ID for your dropdowns. So whatever ID you chose, just add the same one. Let me just check if mine is the same. Yep, this is my drop down here, my ID. So add the same ID, and this is just going to call onto your drop down, and whatever option you selected will replace this entire line, and the font will be replaced with the font you selected. Semicolon. And now the other thing you have to do is we'll just copy this line again, and we'll just paste it above this element, and we'll remove the dot family. So you'll just add a space and say we'll add a vertical bar, and then say we'll add font, and is it a font face. We'll just say font face. What is this thing called again? Underscore. We'll just say underscore font underscore face. Font underscore face. And we have to close this because this is a style. We have to close it inside of our style, CSS style braces. So let's just do that. So make sure yours looks exactly like this. your font is your custom font. No, wait, we don't need this. We don't need this. Actually, this is for our. That's when you want to use the font changer or the font picker. You don't need that. We just need this line. Okay, so let's save this. Okay, let's reload our page. And now we should immediately have our custom font working. And as you can see there, it's already there. If I select this one, it will immediately work. So that's basically the process for adding a custom font. But as you can see here, you can only use that. Will only change to any of these two. It won't revert back to the normal font. So yeah, so even if we save this, we reload the page, it will still be there. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to assign our checkbox that will allow us or disable that feature when it's not checked. Okay, so let's get back to our editor. And what we will do next is we will add this line of code, and this is just an assignment. It will assign our checkbox, and this will say assign our checkbox, and this is our checkbox ID. Assign it to a value of true, so meaning assign it to a checked value, and then we'll create an if statement inside of our assignment and say if our checkbox, if it's not false, meaning if it's true, then run this code. But if it's false, if it's not checked, then don't run this code. And we just need to end our if statement with an end if. So now this checkbox, if it's checked, it will run this code. If it's not checked, it won't allow this code to run. So that means that our title will just revert back to its default or the store's font style. So let's save this, reload our page. So by default it won't be checked, so that means our title here will just be store font, regular store font. So now let's activate our imported fonts, and there we go. And now we have our list of 2 different fonts in. And now if you want to add more fonts, you can just go ahead and just add as many as you want. Just the only thing you have to do to add more is well, first of all, you have to import your font, and then just down here in your drop down, just add another line of code like this. And then you can just keep on adding more and more font to that drop down. And that's about it. So thanks for watching.